Oh, I know. How shocking. One more guy whose favorite game is Ocarina of Time. Well, it is, and bear with me. Let me share with you not just why The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time, but also why it is such a life changing piece of entertainment for me. For this story, we'll need to go back a few years to the late 90s. 1997 was the year I first laid eyes upon a video game console. We were out visiting some family, and right then and there, little me saw, right next to the TV, a little box. A little box with a smaller box jammed on top. That box was an SNES. That little box was able to send pictures and text to the TV screen, and even better than that, it gave whoever had the controller the ability to interact with them. I was blown away. I had never seen anything like that before. Needless to say, little me was thrilled. I wanted to try that little box myself, and as time went by, I grew more and more restless about it. Until one day, I decided to do what most of us did back then as kids, to try and get, pretty much anything. We wrote a letter and waited patiently for Christmas to come. It is now Christmas 1998, and the plan? Well, it worked. As a matter of fact, it had worked better than expected. Be it a happy mistake, a conscious goodwill decision by my parents, or some store clerk's recommendation, what I got that Christmas was not an SNES, but rather a Nintendo 64 game console. Could you believe that? I was now the happy owner of the newest 5th generation console out there. My N64 came bundled with 2 games, Ocarina of Time and Pokemon Snap. And guess what game I was crazy about and couldn't wait to try out? Yeah, you got that right, Pokemon Snap. I played that bad boy for weeks, completely neglecting my Legend of Zelda game. Until one day, after taking pictures of Mew for the 100th time, I decided that it was now time to try out my other game. Guys, I'm not exaggerating when I say that my life changed when I booted up my console with the Zelda cartridge in it. It all started with silence. The N64 logo, and then moonlight. Moonlight shining over the fields. A horse came into scene galloping with a young green-clothed boy. The scene, the music, the panoramic shots. It was in that moment that I realized that I was taking on a whole different beast this time around. Now you gotta remember, we're talking about a young, cute Mexican kid that couldn't understand a word of English. So, naturally, it took me roughly a year to finish that game. Mainly because I needed to grab my dad and sit him with me to play, so that he could read and translate every single line of dialogue in that game, every road sign, every item description, every instruction. At the end, I finally made it through the game, and I still remember the action-filled boss fights, the twists of the story, the weight of carrying the fate of Hyrule on my virtual shoulders. You see, up until that moment, my N64 was not more than just a mere toy for me. I'm sure that's what most people saw and still see in video games up until now, almost 18 years later. But after finishing that game, I came to realize that video games could be so much more. They could forge experiences and memories. They could help you build your curiosity, your patience, your sense of adventure. After playing through Ocarina of Time, I understood that a story could be told through many different mediums, and that every game was a whole new world to dive into and discover. The Legend of Zelda means so much for me, not just because it's very fun to play and very rewarding to beat. When I think of Ocarina of Time, I don't just think of the great adventure, of defeating Ganondorf, of the great Ocarina 64-bit music. When I think of Ocarina of Time, I think of my dad, sitting next to me. I think of the first time I couldn't wait to go back home from school to keep playing. I think of the first time I invested myself emotionally into a story. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is not just my favorite video game of all time, it's also the game that made me fall in love with gaming in the first place. My life changed because of it, and for me, it has become so much more than just a game. Hey guys, Guille here. Thank you so much for watching. We made these videos trying to put a little bit of ourselves in them so that you can get to know us a little better. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, please click that like button and subscribe if you want to see content similar to this one. To see my friend Adolfo's video on Super Mario 64, click right here. Now if you want to hear more of this sexy voice, check out our weekly podcast here, where we talk about all things gaming, news, announcements, our thoughts, predictions, etc. What's that, you say? An hour and a half, it's too long for you? Ha! We've got you covered, buddy. Check out this podcast highlight videos down here. Tell us down in the comments what are your favorite moments from Ocarina of Time. And finally, thank you so much once again for watching. Remember guys, always keep playing.